We're in Tikkun Zohar, Tikkun Kaf Aleph 21. It's very long, it's about 100 pages, this chapter, at least in this edition. So let's just jump right in for 10 or 15 minutes. Devar acher shimu harim et riv Hashem. The Prophet Micha said, listen, mountains, to the argument of God. What is the argument of God? And what are the mountains? You will go walk outside and you talk to a tree and you say, hey tree, listen to the argument of God. Hey rock, listen to the argument of God. No, we're not talking about a loony bin here. We're not talking about a Meshuggah. We're talking about the Prophet, the perfect man, if there is such a thing. As close to a perfection that can come in this world in the form of a human being is a true prophet. It's like Maimonides said. So, two questions the Zohar asks. What is the argument of God and what are the mountains? It says the argument of God is the divine presence in the world. And the mountains are the patriarchs. So again, the Prophet says, listen, patriarchs, to the divine presence in the world. It's still a mystery. Let's try to unravel the mystery. What an argument we're talking about is the argumentation and dispute over the Holy One, blessed be He. It's not a very popular subject, I agree. It's something that people might want to turn off this YouTube for right now. But give me a fighting chance. If there's an argument for the sake of heaven, an argument for goodness and for truth, these are the arguments that will last. If an argument is just people and their egos fighting with each other just to prove each other wrong and just for their own pride, these arguments will not last. They'll be exposed as a sham. Everybody will know. We're talking about there's a reason to argue sometimes. With a man and a woman in a relationship, if couples, husbands and wives, and if they don't argue at all, that's not good. If they're arguing all the time, that's it sounds not so good. However, if there's a healthy, every couple argues, there has to be a healthy argumentation. If they're arguing out of love, genuine love for each other and concern, and they both want to get to the truth, it's not so easy because not everybody sees the same truth. So it has to be done with one has to be clever in an argument. How do you know when a man and woman love each other? You know when they're fighting how they love each other, because a husband and wife get to know each other pretty well, and they know that word that can come out of their mouth that could really hurt, that could really jab the spouse. And even in the midst of a heated argument, if one of them really loves the other, he or she will refrain from using that ammunition that popped into his or her head. And that's love. So this is arguments for the sake, we're talking about for the sake of heaven. So why does he say this to the patriarchs? Saying, hey, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, listen to the disputes for the sake of heaven, for that is the very Shekhinah. What's the Zohar saying? Let's continue. This is the disputes and the fights for the Holy One, blessed be He, for her children, for His children, that are in exile. We will fight the exile. We will fight to get to the truth in order to get out of the exile. Bizman elav inun begaluta riv legabai al inun miskenin de azli mit tarchin me'atraihu. This means there's a time when God's children are in exile, the people of Israel are in exile, and there's a time when they're not in exile. When they're not in exile, then it's the argument is why we're not in exile, but there's still poverty. There's still personal exiles. Let's say, okay, Mashiach's here, Beit HaMikdash is here. The world will still run according. The sun will come up and the sun will come down. Some will be rich and some will be poor. There will still be death in the world until perhaps a later stage in Jewish belief. Am I tefillin on right here? Okay. Oh, yeah. Should have them on right. But there will be a time when the majority of the Jewish people will be in their lands. The majority of the Jewish people will be at home, in our home, in Israel. And we will fight the war with Amalek and destroy Amalek, the internal spiritual Amalek and the external Amalek, which is the enemies of Israel who want to destroy us physically. We will destroy them. It's a foregone conclusion. It won't be pretty sights, but when we win, it will be a pretty sight. And then we'll build the temple. And then then the resurrection of the dead and the conquering of death, Bila Hamabat Netzach, is a later stage. Meaning when, like the Prophet said, that death will be swallowed forever. That's a later stage in the development of the history of the world. But so he's saying that when we're not in exile, when we're here in our land, there's still an argument for the sake of God. And that is, what about the poor? What about the suffering? Yes, we made it. We made it to Israel. We're almost out of the exile. We're so close. We have a lot of work to do. The temple is not built. The Messiah is not yet here. But we're very close. What are we going to do to take care of the needy? That's the argument, he's saying. To have love for them and mercy upon them. And it's like the verse says, O yachazek b'ma'zoi ya'aseh shalom li, shalom ya'aseh li. Strengthen my stronghold. Make peace with me. Make my peace, God says. They shall make my peace. So the verse in Isaiah chapter 27 says peace twice. It says, Ya'aseh shalom li, they shall make my peace. Peace they shall make for me, to me. What are these two pieces? The Zohar explains. Chad im shchinta di'iriv legabe al miskana. One is peace will be made with the Shekhinah, because the Shekhinah doesn't want to see any of her children, meaning all of the children of Israel are like the children of the Shekhinah, doesn't want to see them suffering. That's the first piece. For the poor. And for the suffering that we shouldn't know from suffering. And what's the second one? Uman di'iu miskana de abdat riv bagine. And who is the poor one? Who's the poor fellow who we make an argument? We argue on his behalf to defend him. Da miskana di'iu misitu de tzaddik. That's not just any poor person. It's a poor person who is a tzaddik, who has a somewhat developed point inside of him of sense of justice and an appreciation of mitzvot and goodness and a respect for God. The Zohar says, is the one that we argue, our main point of our argument for the Shekhinah. If somebody is poor, and has a scowl on his face all the time, and everything's a joke, and doesn't believe in anything. Silly old man. That's sad. We should pray for him too, that he should get some sechel. But sometimes people are far gone. But there's always hope. But he's talking about the righteous poor. The Zohar says, "Maniu miskene da abdas riv begine, da miskene dihu misitu de tzaddik." We're talking about the poor person who's from the side of the tzaddik. Hakol sheken kad tzaddik yihu charev v'yavesh b'chai birkan ditzlota. And all the more so if he's a tzaddik. Here it says something that's hard to understand. When the tzaddik is dry and destroyed and dry in the 18 blessings of the Amidah. When we pray, we say the silent Amidah, and we have 18 blessings. We say silently, standing before God. Blessed art you, it's the shield of Abraham. Blessed are you, God, who resurrects the dead. Blessed are you, the holy God. And then we ask for our needs, please, blessed are you who grants wisdom, etc. So what does it mean to be dry from these things? That if the tzad, I think he's referring to the argument of God when Micha, to summarize, said, Shimu harim et riv Hashem, listen mountains to the argument of God. I would like to say now that he's imploring, he doesn't feel that he can implore all the way to the essence of God. It's funny, he's the prophet. But he says the mountains, as if to say to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who are interceding on behalf of Israel, their souls in the Garden of Eden or in heaven, wherever, the tzaddik has no peace in this world and no peace in the world to come. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did not have any peace in this world, and he doesn't have any peace in the world to come until the world is totally fixed, tikkun olam, until there's total redemption and peace in the world, until there's world peace. He's working. He worked like to mitzeta chama ad tzeta neshama, from the rising of the sun until his soul went out. He worked for the welfare of his children and to fix the world and to bring godliness into the world. Our forefather Jacob, and then after he had a very difficult life, he died, and our tradition teaches that he's still working in heaven. He has no peace in heaven. He's constantly caring for the children of Israel and the whole world to come to its completion and its fulfillment. So Micha said, listen, patriarchs, don't forget about, keep doing your work, the argument of God, the Shechina in exile. Whether we're in exile and when we're not in exile, then there's still another stage of work to be done. The work, until the very end, the work is never done. So when the tzaddik can't pray, the Zohar here says, when he finds it difficult to pray, and he shouts out and cries out to God, help me to serve you, help me to find the fruition and the meaning and the fire in the prayer to serve you, to beseech for the good of all of the world. Az yikranuni v'lo eneh. And then it is said, and they'll call me and I won't answer. So in order to stave this off, we shout to the mountains, we shout to our holy ancestors, we shout all the way up to the very essence of God, to whatever we can. Because our prayer is generally directed to the very essence of God. We don't pray to Abraham. We don't pray to the God of kindness. We don't pray to the God of strength. There's one God in His essence, and we may speak to the souls of the tzaddikim in a certain way in a certain level of prayer. But every Jew knows, every simple child with payas who davens knows that when we're davening to the very infinite essence of the Holy One, blessed be He, far, far beyond any name or description, from whose will all things come into existence, and who cares about each and every detail of His creation. And He wants us to win Him over, so to speak. And this, I bless you all in this Rosh Hashanah to win God, to win over the Holy One, blessed be He, in this argument which is the Shekhinah. Shana Tova Mutuka.